Órale, bienvenidos and welcome to the Familia FFB podcast. This is Jorge Martin, su servidor, your amigo, we're here. NFL Insider Series, Familia. It's hot and heavy. It's hot and heavy. We are in the weeds. We're in the weeds. Today we're flying high. We're going to Ravens country, Familia. We're going to Ravens country with our amigo Kevin Oestreicher. From Locked On Ravens. He's also on the Locked On NFL pods. Also he's on the writing for the Ravens Wire. I don't know when this guy sleeps, and there's a rumor he also does some baseball too. So he has a habit of covering teams that win. So Kevin, mi amigo, welcome, bienvenido. Thank you for joining us. Muchas gracias.
I appreciate you having me back on here. I know last time we spoke, we were gearing up for what actually turned out to be a really exciting Ravens season. Now, I know the end of it was not very exciting for everybody here in Baltimore, but you know what? Lamar Jackson won a second MVP, and both the offense and the defense were crazy dominant. So excited to talk with you again this year.
No, it's awesome. I'm going to be more excited to talk about if we've added anything to the elotes or so. But we're gonna wait on that one for a second. But amigo, so I think last year there were a lot of questions. What was Todd Monken going to bring to the offense? How was Lamar Jackson going to adapt to the offense? How healthy was Lamar? I think we got our answers. Another MVP season from Lamar. Now, a lot of times team players, especially quarterbacks, talk about the second year in an offense, how they're so much more comfortable. Could we even be looking at a better Lamar this year?
I think it's possible, especially because I think one of the biggest storylines of the Ravens offseason so far has been his body retransformation. A big deal was made about how much he weighs now, what does his body look like. So Lamar ended up revealing that he ended up being 232 years ago. He played at 215 last year, and now he's down to around 205 or so, which is where he was around during his rookie season, second year when he won that first MVP back in 2019. So Lamar chalked it up to, he feels like Lamar again. And there were certain plays last season where you could see that, look, even with the added weight, Lamar was still super fast, super agile, super electric. He just felt like there was almost like a one singular gear downshift, especially in that AFC Championship game, where usually when Lamar, there was that fourth down run where he just took it up the middle, went to the right side. And usually he just breaks that out and goes for a touchdown, but he didn't look confident in his speed. And instead of just breaking down the sideline, tried to back juke L'Jarius Sneed and ended up getting tackled after, I think, 15 or 20 yards. So I think with him having that just different part of him back, where we, again, haven't seen that. Lamar said he hasn't felt this way really since COVID. So it's going to be interesting, that 2020, 2021 area. So we could see it. But to your point about the offense, I think it's big, too, because you mentioned year two of an offense. Todd Monken is going into year two now. But something that we didn't see a ton of with Lamar under Greg Roman during his tenure there, Lamar didn't have a ton of pre-snap control, where usually you see with younger quarterbacks, second year, third year, fourth year, they're starting to get that added responsibility. Lamar got a little of that, but not nearly to the level we see it usually. So Todd Monken gave him that freedom last season. He's expected to get even more of that this year. And Lamar's a smart football player. He's a smart guy. He sees the field really well. He reads the field really well. And I think hopefully, and we'll talk about the receivers a little more later, I'm sure, but with Zay Flowers, Rashod Bateman, and hopefully getting some more chemistry with those guys, I think Lamar could be in for another incredible season here in Baltimore.
And you know what? And I think people got really treated to how really a good passer he is. With the arm angles and everything like that. He's a little bit, Matthew Stafford, some of the, with changing the arm angles and everything like that, accuracy was really good. He did it. He did it so well. Were there any areas of growth that maybe he talked about or Monken talked about that could translate on the field?
I think just continuing to get better with everybody. If there was one area that I could kind of point to, the deep passing game was not Baltimore's best last season. I think that whether it was the receiver, again, I'm not going to pin that all on one guy. It's not all Lamar's fault. It's not all the receiver's fault, but it was a combination of Lamar during his early stages. His deep passing wasn't the best in the league, but it was middle of the field, which is fine. Like you will take that. But over these past couple of years, he has been towards the bottom of the league in terms of deep passer rating, deep ball accuracy. And we've seen it where whether it's overthrows, underthrows, receivers dropping balls, it just hasn't been as consistent as they've needed it to be. If they can open up that element of their passing game even just a little bit more, Lamar doesn't have to be the best deep passer in the league, but if he can just get back into that middle tier of NFL passers that way, I think it opens up, especially with Derrick Henry in that backfield now and everything that he's going to bring to the table. Plus, you hope for a fully healthy year from this receiver group and the tight ends, obviously, as well.
Well, you know what? You started me off on a tangent here. So I'm going a different direction. Mark Andrews, I mean, top target, but first off, he battled all the way to get back just to play in the AFC Championship game. I know he wasn't unleashed for full snaps on that one, but when we're talking about with Andrews and also kind of like the resurgence of I don't know. I don't know if about resurgence is a good word, but the emergence of Isaiah Likely as a bigger part of the passing game while Andrews was gone. First off, let's talk about Andrews' health, where he is from a health standpoint, and as far as what kind of like where his role is going to be, and could likely kind of also become a part of that.
Yeah, I think the biggest, I think everybody's been talking about it the whole offseason is you have to get Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely on the field at the same time. And I think there's been this thing where over Lamar Jackson's career, if your name is not Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews, or Zay Flowers, you're getting anywhere from 2 to 4 targets a game. And that's just what it is. Now, when Mark Andrews went out both last year and this past season, Lamar started to spread the ball out a ton. And again, Lamar and Mark Andrews have this connection. Like it's pure, it is real, you cannot replicate it. And so, yes, you want to be throwing the ball to your best targets, and Lamar Jackson clearly understands he and Mark Andrews have that. And I'm not saying don't throw the ball to Mark Andrews as much as you want to, because again, that's great. But Isaiah Likely's emergence, there was really part of the reason the Ravens were so good last year, and this even extends to the defensive side of the ball too, is whenever guys went down, because Baltimore, to contrary belief, they were injured last season, but it was just a different type of injured, where the past 3 to 4 years, it was 20 guys on IR, everybody getting season-ending injuries. This year it was 5 guys missed 3 weeks, or 6 guys missed a month and then came back. So they were still having to deal with that, but for example, when Andrews went down, there was no drop-off between him and Likely in terms of production. So they're both tight end ones, in my opinion. Likely could be starting on probably 25, 27 of these 32 NFL teams. And Baltimore has a luxury of having both of them. So I think that what you're probably going to see, at least what I hope to see, is obviously Andrews is still going to be your guy. But using 2 tight end sets, you can put both in line. You can maybe line up Likely in the slot, put both guys there. We've even seen them dominate from the outside as well, where they've had reps against really good NFL corners and dominated those reps. So they're going to try to use 3 receiver sets, 4 receiver sets, I think. But part of that is, can you classify some of those guys and put them in those formations too? I think you can, because it opens up so much, especially in heavy personnel packages, when you can work play action off of that, much like the Ravens did in 2019 when they were so dominant. Plus, they also have Charlie Kolar, who's their 3rd string tight end, who's been impressing during OTAs and minicamp so far. If they get back to that 3 tight end set, especially with Derrick Henry now, that could be scary for the rest of the NFL.
Oh, that would just be amazing. Yeah, because Kolar had some good, had some good moments there during the playoffs as well, and actually, and when Andrews was out. So, that'd be phenomenal. And you brought something up about the connection between Andrews and Jackson. I don't think anybody was more emotional when Andrews got hurt than Lamar Jackson, when he just like got up and he just like slammed his helmet to the ground. I mean, you could tell that this is beyond teammates. I mean, he felt for him as a human being, but also you could tell the deep connection that really belies football. So I think so I'm going to go in. I'm going to jump over to the receivers real quick. Zay Flowers, could he be ready for a year 2 jump? And kind of where would he be in the pecking order with Andrews when it comes to targets?
Yeah, I think Zay's poised for a huge jump. Baltimore essentially is trusting a lot of their young guys. And again, probably talk about Rashod Bateman a little later, but it's about him and Zay are essentially Baltimore's 1 and 2, with Zay being the 1 and Bateman being the 2. They didn't bring any competition in for those two guys. It's essentially, hey, look, we understand, we believe in you, and go out there. Zay, my bold prediction, I might have even said it here last year, was that there was all this conversation about who's going to be the number 1 wide receiver in Baltimore last year. Is it Odell? Is it Bateman? Is it Flowers? And my bold prediction was by the end of the season, Zay Flowers will be the number 1 wide receiver on the team. Zay Flowers was the number 1 wide receiver on the team by the time week 1 ended. I mean, it was literally like that. He's a 3-level receiver, someone who is an incredible route runner. And Peter King actually said it best when he was out at Ravens training camp last year. He said, you have to either hold Zay Flowers or tackle him before the ball gets there in order to stop him one-on-one. You have to send, whether it's, you spy him with a safety, spy him with a linebacker, put someone underneath, put someone over top. You have to put attention on Zay. And last year we saw that opened up other one-on-one opportunities, whether it is Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Rashod Bateman, whoever. They believe that with a year in an NFL conditioning offseason program, just a year to work out and having that year of experience under his belt, he's not the prototypical size number 1 NFL wide receiver. He's not AJ Brown. He's not DK Metcalf. He's on the smaller side, but you can play him in the slot. You can play him on the outside. I think Baltimore believes a ton in his on-field ability and what he can do in year 2.
Yeah, and he actually seemed to really, a lot of times when you see the greatest growth in wide receivers in the rookie year, it's in the back half of the season. And it seemed like when Lamar went on that run where he was the quarterback 1 by far for weeks after the bye, weeks 14 to 17, the most important weeks of the season, he was, he dragged Flowers with him. Flowers was, the two of them were just fantastic. And I'm gonna share a little heartache with you right now. I had Lamar and Zay stacked in my Familia League that this podcast is based on, and on Christmas night, week 16,
yeah,
I was in it. I was trailing, and then they just brought me all the way back, literally to fractional points tied. Fractional points tied. Do you know what I'm about to say?
You couldn't pull it out at the end?
You kneel down on the final play of the game.
Oh man!
Literally was the point one that made it a win into a loss. And actually, when Lamar went crazy in week 17, I would have won easily.
That is so painful.
So,
that is so painful.
But it was so fun. It was so fun because it's Christmas, so we're all surrounded by Familia and all the people who are in the league together, and we're watching this comeback, and it's just it was hilarious. It was hilarious. So it was good times. But you know what? Back to Flowers. I think I loved watching the growth last year, and what you said exactly, the way they used him all over the place, just fantastic. Yeah, he's starting to go in like that wide receiver 2 range, where in underdog drafts they're going crazy. And yeah, if I can stack a Lamar with either Flowers or Andrews, I'm just happy camper. It's going to be hard to get both, but But you mentioned Rashod Bateman, so. Health has been a factor with him. But I heard rumblings that he's healthy, and please get my hopes up.
I'll try my best. Now, I think when during OTAs, during minicamp, the Ravens had a bunch of media availability podium, and almost every single guy that went up there, offensive player, coach, even some of the defensive guys, had a ton of praise for Rashod Bateman and what he was able to do. Now, there's one thing, you got to separate offseason hype with actual on-field production. He has to put it together on the field. The Ravens signed him to a 3-year extension. There was this whole situation with his 5th-year option where he didn't report to training camp at the very beginning last year. I think it was either mini camp or training camp. Didn't report right away. And because he didn't do that, his 5th-year option was voided. It didn't exist. So we didn't know this until Bateman signed the extension. But essentially, Baltimore had to make the decision of, okay, this is a contract year now for Bateman, or sign him to the extension. And it was $6 million per year annually, which in this wide receiver market is an absolute bargain. Especially if he can, all the potential that he has, if he can realize that. Rashod Bateman at $6 million per year for 3 seasons is utterly ridiculous value. So for him, and this has been a whole career thing. I'm not going to blame health on him. Injuries happen. It's football. Like, it's unfortunate, yes, but I'm not going to blame the guy for that. There's been some lost connection with Lamar Jackson because of that. I think there really hasn't been a full off season, or at least multiple off seasons, where they have been able to just get on the field, on the practice field, and just gel together. And I think that has been detrimental to their production on the field. But we see Bateman, who is also, I said last season that Zay Flowers, Rashod Bateman, and Odell Beckham Jr. was the best route running receiving trio in the NFL, because all three of those guys are incredible at it. Bateman himself, whether you want to watch his Baltimore tape, his tape from back at Minnesota in college, he is incredible at route running. And so I think that for him, the next step is just putting it all together, but that all starts by staying healthy on the field. There's no competition for Bateman. I think last year there was a lot of conversation here about, well, who actually is the number two? Is it Odell? Is it Rashod Bateman? And Bateman might have been looking over his shoulder like, oh, okay, well, what's my role here? There is a clear role for him this season. Baltimore has said as such with the extension, with all they're saying about him, with no competition brought in. Bateman is this team's number two, and there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, the key thing with that, too, is I think from a professional standpoint of what he has done over the course of his professional career, he has not lived up to those first-round expectations, especially with him being drafted in the, he was 27 overall. So I think for him, a breakout season or just being able to contribute is going to depend also on what this Ravens offense looks like, because the Ravens last year were first in rushing attempts, obviously, but they were 30th in passing attempts. So when you're getting 2 targets a game, 4 targets a game, like I was mentioning earlier, that's hard to get into a rhythm and just hard to come down with production. And it led to a lot of 2 for 25, 3 for 33 stat lines, and you just can't get in a groove that way. So hopefully for Bateman's sake, and I think the offense should be more balanced in general, hopefully they're a more balanced offense, but obviously while still leaning headfirst into their identity as a run-first team.
Well, I delayed it long enough on the run first. You mentioned it right there, King Henry. I think one of the I don't like to feed rumors, trade rumors at any time. I like to react when trades actually happen.
Yep.
So I know one of the trade rumors that really got bandied about in the fantasy community was seeing Derrick Henry get traded to Baltimore Ravens, which didn't happen, obviously.
Right.
Now he's landed there, and people are pumped. I mean, he's going in the late second, early third round of best ball drafts, an underdog. Could we be looking at a bell cow role with him? What kind of season could we be looking at, considering what they did last year with Gus Edwards and others?
Yeah, I love the value Derrick Henry is going at right now. I'd be all over him in the second or third round, 1,000%. I mean, I think the value in Derrick Henry lies with a couple of things. One, I have never seen a running back used in years like Derrick Henry has been used in Tennessee, or how they used him over there in Tennessee. Consistently for the last 5 seasons, like 270 carries, 280 carries, 310 carries. And he only really missed time in one of those years for the past 5 seasons. He's been extremely durable despite having a crazy workload. I know a lot of people in fantasy, I think some people value just, okay, get me the carries and the production will hopefully follow with that. Bell cow, we don't really see it a ton in today's NFL anymore. And I think that still has value in fantasy football. Now, in terms of Baltimore, his role is going to be interesting, because he is going to be the bell cow. But what the definition of bell cow in Baltimore, I think, is a little different than other places, because they run the ball so much, which I still expect to happen a lot this season. Keaton Mitchell is the other factor here, when he comes back, I think Derrick Henry's role shrinks, but not to the point where he's not the bell cow or not getting anywhere from 15 to 20 plus carries a game. I think Keaton will take away some of those touches, but we don't know when Keaton's going to come back yet. John Harbaugh said it is not a thing where he's going to be back by training camp or week 1. It's looking like a early-ish, mid-ish season return for him. So if you can kind of ride that Derrick Henry pure bell cow role early, and then once Keaton comes back, even if you want to stack both of them, I mean, I think Keaton is probably going way, way down there right now, because he's only going to be available for probably half the season. But for Derrick Henry, him landing in Baltimore, their offensive line's a bit of a question mark right now. They've lost 3 starters, so they're going to try to shuffle and figure things out. But with Lamar and Derrick Henry, there's just so much pull for those guys. I mean, there's so much gravity that Lamar Jackson brings and a Derrick Henry brings. I know that there's some concern about Lamar vulturing Derrick Henry for some touchdowns this season, which will happen. But to me, I think that, Gus Edwards still had 13 last season, and no one was complaining about that. So I think they'll give Derrick Henry those opportunities. Lamar, of course, will steal a couple, but I think Derrick Henry, from a fantasy perspective and just a football perspective, is going to be incredible in Baltimore.
Yeah, it's not like they use Lamar like the Eagles use Jalen Hurts, right, or the Bills used Josh Allen at the goal line. No, it's like hand it over to the big guy and save Lamar for another day. So I love Derrick Henry's value this year. He's going in that range where it's like if you peeled off a couple of really good receivers early on in best ball drafts, he could be like that anchor running back, and then just go back to maybe and then kind of like forget about the running back position for a while. Now, one of the things you're right. I think I even read this in I was prepping for this, and I think it was in the Ravens Wire where it showed that he had his surgery at the end of December. Yeah. And I do a podcast, the injury prone podcast with Dr. Evan Porras. And, his kind of like baseline is 9 months, minimum 9 months, no doctor. So that puts us like around October 1st, right. So maybe 3-4 weeks, but that's if everything goes right. So maybe they're a little more, but yeah, I love Henry, especially when it gets cold. Gosh, he's going to be so lethal. So, oh man, fantastic. I think we've kind of hit everybody that, all the main players, of what it's going to look like. I want to see kind of like a quick hit that the offensive line had, dealt with some injuries last year. Now but got some, it still ended up finishing as a solid unit. Kind of, can you give me a state of the offensive line?
Yeah. So Baltimore lost John Simpson, Kevin Zeitler, and Morgan Moses all this offseason. Zeitler went to Detroit, and Simpson and Moses went to the Jets. So you have Ronnie Stanley, who said he also feels as good as he's felt probably since COVID, he mentioned.
Oh, wow.
Which would hopefully be a great sign. Obviously, that ankle injury in 2020 has wreaked havoc on his career, and that all-pro player that we saw, really he's been somewhat of a shell of himself, but we see those glimpses, and it's just about him being able to stay healthy for a full season, because last year he was hindered. He had a knee thing alongside the ankle, and then it just he was not himself. So Tyler Linderbaum at the center position is one of the best centers, if not the best center now in the league, with Jason Kelce in his retirement. But other than that, it's going to be the season of, I call it replacement plans or young guys. The Ravens drafted Roger Rosengarten in the second round out of Washington. He's expected to win that right tackle job. It's probably going to be a competition between him and Daniel Falele for that. Andrew Voorhees, who the Ravens took they actually traded back into the 7th round to get him last year after he tore his ACL doing a combine drill. He was like a 3rd, 4th round guy before the injury. Baltimore snagged him in the 7th. He's back healthy now. He's expected to win that left guard job. The right guard job is a little interesting. Ben Cleveland, who they took out of Georgia, he's a guy that is now in his 4th season. He didn't have a very strong minicamp, and a lot of people expected him to win that job. So is that maybe they sign Josh Jones? Maybe they kick him inside the guard and play him as a veteran option. They have a couple other guys as well. So there's going to be a learning curve with this group. Obviously, it's important to gel everybody as soon as you can. John Harbaugh mentioned that he'd like to have that starting offensive line before the preseason starts. All the competitions won, but realistically, that's probably not going to happen. Those competitions will probably go well into the preseason. So I'd expect maybe some early hiccups, some ups and downs, but hopefully if they can continue their continuity throughout the course of the season and guys are able to step up, that's going to be huge, because again, it all starts up front for an offense for me on that offensive line, whether it's in run blocking or pass protection. It is so important. So hopefully the Ravens can get everything squared away there.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be definitely something that we're going to be following all the way through training camp, just kind of like that state, because you want to keep Lamar upright and open those holes for Derrick Henry. So amigo, on the other side of the ball, just a quick look on the other side of the ball. I don't think there was a better defense in the NFL last year than the Ravens, that Mike Macdonald unit. But Mike Macdonald has flown to Seattle, and now there's been some other players who left. You still got Kyle Hamilton, you still got some studs, but could there be some regression in either the pass or the run defensive game?
Yeah, it's gonna depend. Luckily, Baltimore didn't lose any of their, I call them the core four there. Right. Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey, Justin Madubuike. They re-signed Madubuike to that massive contract. But as I was kind of talking about earlier with the replacement plan situation, Baltimore has been dealing with a lot of this, where they understand Lamar Jackson is on a huge deal now. Right. They have a bunch of other $100 million contracts, $20+ million salary. So for them, they have drafted, for example, Patrick Queen leaves, because you just can't keep everybody. And Baltimore had a crazy amount of free agents last season. Patrick Queen leaves, and then you have Trenton Simpson waiting in the wings, who you drafted in the 3rd round out of Clemson. For the cornerback position, Ronald Darby and Rock Ya-Sin leave, while you draft Nate Wiggins and TJ Tampa in the 1st and 4th round, respectively there. Jadeveon Clowney goes home to Carolina. David Ojabo, who's been injured, and also guys like Tavius Robinson are expected to step up. So this unit is still, I mean, look, there's no question in my mind they're going to be at least the top 5 unit, assuming everybody stays healthy and everything is all good to go. But it's going to really depend on, one, who's going to step up, who's going to, because I think that with how many young guys they're expecting to step up, I think some guys will and some guys won't. If there isn't 100% hit rate on those guys, the Ravens probably win the Super Bowl because of how good everything is going to flow for them. But it's, you talk about realistic, it's probably not going to happen with every single guy. So it's just a matter of how many guys on that defense do. It also depends. You mentioned Mike Macdonald. Zach Orr is a first-time play caller. Now, it certainly helps. He played 3 years in the NFL with the Ravens. It wasn't all pro as last year. I mean, that obviously gives him a little advantage there, despite not calling plays. But it's much like the offensive line, where I expect some hiccups early, just kind of him getting acclimated and everything. But Zach Orr is capable. And he's a really smart guy, obviously being around the game for so long. He started his coaching career pretty soon after he had to medically retire after his 3rd season in the NFL. So I have confidence in him. But again, I think it's unrealistic to expect sunshine and rainbows. I mean, that Baltimore defense was historic last year, broke multiple records. They were on par. They were not better than, but they were on par with that 2000 Ravens defense. And I think, to me, to expect that every single season from this group, despite how many good players are on it, is unrealistic. But this should still be one of the best units in football, no doubt.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. And this has been fantastic. So, mi amigo, you gave me one of the greatest smiles last year when I asked you your favorite Mexican food, and you said elote, which is, I was so pleasantly surprised. What do you pair with it? What's it's a great sidekick kind of food. Tacos.
Yeah.
What's your ideal meal to make with it?
Oh, there are so many ways that I can go with this. I think that tacos are one. Chicken, and I love chicken tacos, but also just any meat tacos. Get the lettuce, cheese, pico de gallo on there. Even get a little, if you get good corn salsa. A good side of corn salsa, I think that. But again, it's almost like, is there too much corn, because you have the elotes and then you have the corn salsa? But I don't think there's too much corn. I think, corn for everybody. Now, I've had, we were mentioning before we started up here, I've had elotes since we last did this, and I've actually been experimenting a little bit, whether it's with like the lime chili powder or one of my friends loves a little bit of Tabasco, just like a dash of Tabasco, which I didn't really think. I'm like, okay, like I'll try it. Was not bad. I didn't know what to think going into it, but I thought it was good. So I haven't had an elote in a while. I have to get back on that train. I know we talked about it beforehand, but even just like a good quesadilla too. Or you get like, even if you want to just do a bunch of appetizers with like chips and guac, if you get like the good homemade guac, I think that to me is incredible. There's a place actually down in Florida. I mean, there are a bunch of places everywhere, but there's one particular place that makes it right in front of you and puts it in like, the taco shell bowl and everything. And you can just, it is pure perfection. So again, I could go on for this with you for hours, but I know that, unfortunately we don't have that much time, but I'm telling you, elote is just, it makes, whether you want to have it as a main, I have it as a side, but if you want to have it as both, you can't go wrong with it.
Oh man. I know it's lunchtime over here, and it's getting to be happy hour in your neck of the woods. So I say elote for everybody. Elote for everybody.
Yes.
Vámonos. All right, mi amigo, please feel free. Pump anything you got coming up.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. You can follow me on Twitter and actually Instagram now. I'm starting that up. It's Oestreicher34. I host the Locked On Ravens podcast 5 days per week. So if you want Ravens coverage, we have that for you every single weekday. If you want to watch on YouTube, you can do that. We do it over there. Plus in audio form as well, wherever you get your podcast. It's the same show, so you don't have to worry about missing anything else. Right over at USA Today for the Ravens Wire. I've been doing content with Bleacher Report for the past year now. And then also I am covering baseball, as you mentioned there, a little bit more with Ryan Ripken, who is Cal Ripken Jr.'s son. And we have the Ryan Ripken Show over there. We're coming up on 10,000 subscribers, so a big milestone for us. But really appreciate you having me on. It's always an absolute blast coming on here talking football and, of course, food with you too.
Oh, awesome. Well, you know what? He's an Iron Man right there, Familia. Every day. He goes just like Cal, it goes every day, every inning. Love it. You know, and we know how much Baltimore loves players with number 8. So it's fantastic. No, this has been un gran placer, mi amigo. Muchas gracias. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. And Familia, muchas gracias for joining us. Hey, make sure you keep hit that like, hit that subscribe button on Familia FFB on YouTube. Come on, vámonos, and make sure you're following. I'm pushing out all the content, not just my writing content. I've been doing some baseball, but gonna have some football coming up very soon. Now that we're getting into this nitty gritty, but let's go. Vámonos. Well, everybody, remember, todos somos familia. Salud.